Hey guys, Nick here. I want to shoot a quick video. Hopefully you can hear me. I get asked this question quite a bit. Should you quit your job to go into real estate or to do overages? And I wanted to shoot this video to kind of share with you how I quit my job and what I did before quitting my job. Because I don't think there's a lot of stuff on social media about how you should quit your job and just go full in and, you know, jump into the deep end and start your new business or go into real estate or whatever it is. And there's some pros and cons to that. Everyone talks about the pros and why you should do it, but nobody talks about why you shouldn't do it, or maybe the stuff you should think about before you quit your job. So I'm going to tell you my story. You see this house right here? That was the first house I ever bought before I got married to my wife. The mortgage on this was about $900 a month, and I could barely afford that. The only reason I could afford this house was, if you see over here, there's a door right there. I can't zoom in. Anyway, there's a door right here on the side of the house, and that goes to a mother-in-law apartment. And that was the only reason I was able to afford that house, was because of that mother-in-law apartment. And, you know, you can see the transmission shop right there, busy road. Anyway, I rented that house out, or the apartment, for $750 a month. So I almost covered my mortgage from that rental, renting out the basement. That was the only reason I was able to afford this house, working as a corrections officer. So when I quit my job, let's talk about that and what that looked like and what the reality was. When I went to quit my job, I sold that house. I sold that house, and this is the embarrassing part, but this is the reality. I sold that house and I moved into the basement of my in-laws. And that's when I quit my job as a corrections officer. I'm not proud to say that, but that's the reality. Is I knew I had to make some sacrifices to make it work. So I quit. Like I said, I sold that house, paid off all the debts I had, so we didn't have any debt. And with the proceeds from that house, we had, you know, about 6 months of reserves to live on. Probably a little more, but that's what I wanted to have at a minimum, was 6 months of reserves before quitting my job. And the reason behind that is I didn't want to be too pressured and start a new business in a mode of desperation, meaning I wanted to put pressure on myself, but I didn't want to risk the well-being of my family at the time, you know, my wife. So that's what I did personally. And then that's, you know, yeah, I quit my job, but I was also wanted to be smart about it. So I sold that house, eliminated all my debts, and had 6 months of reserves in play, and before I went into overages full time. So going back to, should you quit your job? For me, it was necessary, because I knew that I had to put pressure on myself, and I knew that I wasn't going to create it if my attention was in two places, meaning I was working a W-2 job and trying to build a business on the side. For me, I couldn't do it, and so I had to quit. Some people are able to build something on the side while they're working their W-2, and that's great. You don't have to quit your job. You just have to decide what's best for you, and you need to be smart about it. Don't go just quitting your job when you don't have any money in the bank to pay your bills for the next 3, 4, 6 months. You know, they say, I like the advice to have a year's worth of reserves. That's pretty conservative, and maybe that's not doable. But if you're going to quit your job, you should probably have at least 6 months. At least that's what I did. Now you have to decide what's up for you. So hopefully this answers your question, but there's also a second part to this video, and that is if you're going to start something new, start a new business or go into overages, and you want to make it your full deal, your full-time deal, you got to be prepared to sacrifice. And, you got to be prepared to sacrifice probably 3 things. And this is why I don't think a lot of people are able to make it, because they're not willing to make sacrifices. 1, you're going to have to sacrifice money. You're going to have to invest in your knowledge and your education. You're going to have to invest in startup costs, software, whatever it is. Lucky for me, it wasn't a ton of money that I had to invest going into overages and making that my full-time strategy. But it's going to cost some money. I've spent thousands of dollars on education and to get to where I am, and I continue to spend thousands of dollars on education to better my skills. And you're going to have to do the same if you want to make this a reality for you. It's not all sexy, guys. It's not all glamorous like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook make it out to be. I know you see all these ads of people saying, hey, buy my course, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not against courses. I've bought in several courses. It's because of a course I was able to get to where I am. But with that being said, you need to know the reality, and you need to be prepared to make sacrifices. So, number 1, be prepared to sacrifice money. Number 2, be prepared to sacrifice time. Time away from family, from friends. Time away from watching the TV so you can dedicate that time to learning something new. So that's number 2. And number 3, I think, is a big one for a lot of people. You got to sacrifice your ego and basically humble yourself, and be prepared to make, you have to be prepared to take 1 step back to go 2 steps forward. And I've done that, and I showed you this example of the house. I didn't want to sell that house. How do you think I felt when my friends would ask me, hey man, I heard you quit your job, started a business. Heard you sold your house, where are you living now? How do you think I felt when I had to tell them, oh, I'm living in my in-laws' basement? That sucked. I felt like a failure. I felt like I had moved backwards in life. I felt like a loser. That's just the reality, but I knew that it was a sacrifice I had to make to create a new possibility for my life. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to take that step backwards. They're not willing to sacrifice or give up what they've obtained to create a new reality for themselves. So, you've got to escape whatever pain you're feeling now. For me, my pain was going and working at a prison and being subject to, the government and answering to them, not being in control of my finances, not being in control of my time. That was painful. That was the pain that I was feeling, and it caused a lot of other issues in my life. My health declined. It put strain on my relationships. Maybe you can relate to that. But I knew that in order to escape that painful reality, I was going to have to make some sacrifices and experience a different kind of pain. Pain of selling our house, pain of having to tell people that I lived in my in-laws in my late 20s. But it's worth it. At least for me, it was worth it. And I haven't made it. I'm still, no longer in the in-laws basement, thank goodness. So, although I love my in-laws and I'm so grateful for them that they, supported me in that. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do it along with my parents. But the point is, you have to be willing to make sacrifices. And if you're not willing to make sacrifices, I wouldn't waste your time. So again, be prepared to sacrifice time, sacrifice money, sacrifice your ego. Be prepared to move backwards in order to create a new reality for yourself. And if you're not willing to do those things, then I got nothing for you guys. I know how hard it is. I know when I got started, I didn't have money to start a business. I've already shared this, when I bought my first course on overages, I put it on a credit card and worked overtime shifts at the prison to pay it off. And I hear your guys' messages and see your emails and how you can't afford to buy, a course or to join the Overage syndicate, and I get it, I understand it. But at the same time, you've got to find a way, and you've got to find a way to sacrifice and make it work. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to save you, no one's going to do the work for you. You have to do it yourself. And that's the reality, guys. Nobody, like I said, nobody talks about, the negative side of things. And as much as I hate to say it, I don't like saying that I sold my house and moved into my in-laws to build a business, but that's the reality. That's what happened. And everyone's path is different. Just be prepared to make those sacrifices and to endure a little bit of pain to get to where you want to go. And if you're not willing to endure that pain, then I don't know if you'll ever be able to get there. So again, be prepared to feel the pain of sacrificing money, time, and your ego if you want to create a new reality for yourself. If you want my help, if you think overages is your method of getting there, you can check out my website, overagesyndicate.com. That's overagesyndicate.com. It's just an online group I have where I teach people, and then people can learn the business, and they can also joint venture with me on deals. So I don't have a course right now or anything. I just have that online group, and so you can be a part of that. There is a price to pay, just to be upfront with you guys. It's not $1,000. I can tell you that. It's a lot less than that. It's not even $500 to get started. It's less than that, a couple $100. So yeah, again, hopefully this was helpful for you guys. That's my story of when I quit my job. I sold that house, paid off my debt, and had some reserves. That was my path. Maybe your path will be similar. Maybe it's completely different. I don't know. But if you're considering quitting your job, just be smart about it, guys. Don't put you or your family in a rough situation, because the last thing you want to do is have that stress looming over you, and then you'll be working from a place of scarcity, and you'll be working from a place of desperation, and that's not a good place to work from. You want to have some security, feel confident, and be able to know that you have time to learn the process and do things right. That's just my opinion, my advice on if you're thinking about quitting your job and going into real estate or doing overages full time. So, and then, like I said, be prepared to make sacrifices of time, money, and sacrifice your ego. Don't be afraid to take one step back in order to go 2 steps forward and find a new reality for yourself. And again, if you want my help, visit overagesyndicate.com. Until next time, we'll see you guys later. Happy investing.